Oh, what a delight. Welcome to Comic Artist Pro Secrets. I'm Ethan Van Sciver, 26-year veteran of the comic book industry, world's most charming, elegant, eloquent, and yet humble man. Great big Star Wars fan, trusted member of the media. Let me sharpen my pencil here. Get ready. Well, it's San Diego Comic-Con weekend, and unfortunately, I don't have an internet connection. And I won't have an internet connection until Sunday when the kindly cable man comes over and does whatever he does. You know, we got a bunch of thunderstorms here which affected my life in ways that I never thought that a thunderstorm could. It removed my internet capabilities. It removed my Wi-Fi, and all I have left is 4G. So feeling sad, feeling blue. I tried to upload a video with my 4G, and it took a long time, but eventually it worked. And I thought, well, why not just keep recording videos and uploading them with 4G? Because you can't miss San Diego Comic-Con. There's too much great stuff going on right now. Too much, well, not great, but interesting things. We just had Dan DiDio get up and give a lecture at DC, a big panel discussion, DC Nation, and basically say, I don't know what comics are for anymore. And he's like, can you guys help me? Like, what is it that you want? You know, and according to this article, he just kind of said, yeah, I don't know, with the, you know, the sales tricks and variant covers, I'm not even sure what we're doing right now. So that's wonderful. That's another symptom of the decline of the comic book industry. It's deeply concerning because Dan DiDio is a very honest guy. He's very forthright and upfront, but he keeps his ears open. And Dan DiDio's reaction to what's going on in the comic book industry in terms of how DC Comics is scaling back their production by 24%, firing people, and closing down entire imprints that were owned and operated by DC Entertainment. That's reality. You know, Marvel Comics' reaction, their continued grifting, they're figuring out schemes and ways to kind of keep Marvel Comics afloat. And still like double down on the number of unsellable books that they produce. That is an illusion. That is not the situation as we find it right now. Yes. You know, it's like it isn't good. And as the ship known as the comic book industry, the big, glorious, unsinkable seafaring craft breaks in two and splits and descends beneath the bubbling, dark waters. A few people scream and yell and give us the finger as we in Comicsgate float away in our lifeboats into whatever's out there in the darkness. And no, we're not particularly stable. We're looking for land. You know, we're looking for new opportunities and a new method to produce comic books and fun stories. But we're still being given the finger by some of the biggest names in comics. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Comicsgate is the only thing that matters in the comic book industry right now. As many times as they shuffle the deck chairs and talk about, hey, we've got this creative team, we're moving them over to here. You know, one of their big announcements at San Diego Comic-Con is that Jim Lee and Brian Michael Bendis are going to be drawing the Legion of Superheroes. Jim Lee's going to draw it and Bendis is going to write it. Whoop-de-doo. I'm not sure that at this point that's something that's interesting to too many people. Comic book stores are closing down and just sort of recycling the same stuff and rearranging kind of the game of musical chairs that goes on with creative teams versus IPs just isn't really going to be the answer. It's not going to be enough to pack them into the comic shops, which are rapidly closing anyway. So what is the answer? I don't know. I mean, we have our own theories as we move forward. Alan Moore is not going to descend beneath the waves. Alan Moore has ordered a helicopter to drop him down a ladder. Or Alan Moore is going to fly away on a large dragon, and he's going to say goodbye to the hobbits that have been accompanying him on his journey as he descends, or as he flies away soars into the beautiful night sky, I don't know, firing off magic spells. This man actually does believe in magic, which is interesting to me. I don't know how you can be an adult and believe in magic. I don't. But then again, the comic book industry is a haven for some of the most eccentric people in the world. And it pays them. It pays them and allows them to live in these bubbles where they can continue to be eccentric and weird, and nobody really questions them. These bubbles are beginning to burst. The truth is, Alan Moore is an extremely talented guy, and so people are going to tolerate his eccentricities and the fact that he seems to, I don't know, want to look like some kind of biblical prophet or something. I'm not sure what he's doing. But for everyone else in this industry, we've got Alan Moore, real talent, and then a whole lot of super talent boys who have equal strange eccentricities and scowls on their faces, and it just doesn't work when they're producing the kind of work that they're producing, which belongs, I don't know, in the recycling bin. Thank goodness for recycling. I'm going to recycle some of this stuff. Legendary creator Alan Moore takes a parting shot at Comicsgate. I suppose this is supposed to hurt my feelings. No, it makes me feel joy. Again, we are the only thing that matters. And as the biggest writer who has ever existed within comics other than Stan Lee. And by the way, I'm not that crazy about Alan Moore's writing. Watchmen to me was a slog to get through. I acknowledge its greatness. I never want to read it again. Killing Joke by Brian Boland, the artist, the most immaculately drawn comic book I've ever read in my entire life, and also the saddest and ugliest and strangest Batman story I've ever read. That would be on this man's shoulders. I'm wondering why Batman is sharing a chuckle with the Joker at the end of that story after the Joker just paralyzed Barbara Gordon and drove Commissioner Gordon to near insanity. I guess a joke about a flashlight is kind of amusing. Both men have a pretty good sense of humor. Batman should have put the Joker in traction. I feel like Alan Moore lost the plot there. I think he knows that. I think he feels the same way. But he has written some great things. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the comic book, is extraordinary. It lives up to its title. It's an extraordinary and fun, interesting book. And he's written many, many other things. But what he's mostly known for in the comic book industry is Watchmen and his fight with DC Comics. His fight with DC Comics, in case you don't know, went like this. Alan Moore wanted to use the Charlton characters. Charleston, or is it Charlton? I think Charlton. Sometimes my brain kind of loses a name or something like that as I'm talking. But, Blue Beetle and those characters. And they told him no, that he couldn't use them. So he created kind of stand-ins for them and called them the Watchmen. And he wrote this extraordinary tale. And he wrote it as, work for hire. So DC Comics owns Watchmen, but because they had such respect for Alan Moore, they promised him that they would not exploit commercially his characters beyond what he agreed to. And he didn't want anything. Like, he didn't want action figures. He didn't want any of this stuff to exist. Now, the book became such a hit, that DC Comics couldn't resist and went back on their deal and actually produced, a Watchmen wristwatch. And the Watchmen wristwatch was enough to make Alan Moore lose his mind and decide that he would never, ever, ever work for DC Comics again. And indeed, he never did. And even though he had a ton of Superman stories that he wanted to tell, he wouldn't tell them for DC Comics. Instead, he allowed Rob Liefeld to hire him with Rob Liefeld's kind of stand-in for Superman called Supreme. And Alan Moore worked for Rob Liefeld, writing all of the Superman stories that he wanted to write using this kind of Superman knockoff that Rob Liefeld owned. So good for Rob Liefeld for providing that opportunity and being in the right place at the right time. Alan Moore has been... he's a legendary guy. He's one of the most important people that's ever been in comics. And again, I say, as he leaves the comic book industry, which everyone is going to have to soon, he leaves early, and on his dragon, his final words are, making fun of Comicsgate. I mean, that's amazing to me. That is absolutely amazing to me. And in a way, part of me doesn't believe it. Let's look at this article. I know I'm going on and on. I have a lot to say about Alan Moore. Writer Alan Moore seems set to retire from comics with the release of The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Volume 4, The Tempest #6, on which he's working with artist Kevin O'Neill. That guy's an acquired taste. You have to kind of get used to his work. You might not like it at first. I'm still not sure that I like it. You know, his Green Lantern stuff, I'm not sure that I'm a fan. I think he did a lot of, you know, 2000 AD work as well. It's interesting. It looks like the stuff that you would, it looks like a really, really good version of doodles that you would do in your notebook. You know, I can't really explain it past that. It looks like something you'd absent-mindedly draw in your notebook. However, the legendary comics writer didn't leave the business without making a statement on Comicsgate. How could he? How could he leave the business without talking about the biggest thing in comics right now? That's you and I. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that he wrote this. I'm not positive that he did. It really does seem like some blue-haired soy boy wrote this. And I'll show you why. Let's scroll down and look at this. The letter reads, so he's got a letter column in the back of his last book, and it goes, Dear Alan Kev, that's Alan Moore and Kevin O'Neill, as a middle-aged conservative incel, right here, is Alan Moore hip enough to use the word incel? He doesn't even have an internet connection, I don't think. I don't think Alan Moore is down with memes. And he's British, so he says, sitting wedged behind my keyboard, trolling Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. This can't be Alan Moore. I want it to be. I desperately want it to be, because if it isn't, it ruins my entire premise in my video. But does he use the word incel? And does he know who Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is? And if he does, and he isn't also trolling Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, if he doesn't think that she's an idiot, Alan Moore's not as smart as I thought he was. AOC is a dummy, and she's ridiculous, and he should know better. With my Batman shirt covered in Pringles. So in other words, fanboy who's eating junk food. Not really us, not really Comicsgate. Comicsgate are usually like retired professionals, military, like enlisted men, police officers, the best of the best, you know, great. I mean, you know, the only person I think in Comicsgate who has a Batman t-shirt covered in Pringles might be Donald DeLay. Might be Donald DeLay. It would be me, but it's more like, you know, what would I have on a t-shirt? Cyberfrog t-shirt covered in pie, maybe. All right, so can I ask with a straight face why you're leaving the comics business? See, this is bitterness. I mean, you know, for Alan Moore to write that, like, of course, he's like saying, of course I'm leaving the comic book business. Of course he is. And why wouldn't, you know, why wouldn't he? And he's also implying, why aren't you? Why aren't you leaving the comic book industry? Now, this is what's strange. He says, yours, he signs it, yours, Hiram J. Comicsgate. This seems anti-Semitic to me. Hiram J. Hiram J. Comicsgate. Seems kind of anti-Semitic, considering that this character that he's writing is someone that he's running down. This is not the stance of a comic skater. Comic skaters would say, we know why you're leaving the business. You're leaving the business because it's dying, because it's no longer catering to fans. It's no longer catering to readers who actually would want to read stories like you wrote. It's not. It's catering more to it's catering to people who will never read comics, who have no money, and even if they did, they would never spend it on comic books. That's the audience that the comic book industry is seeking right now. And it's, you know, yeah, like we'd go, yeah, of course you're leaving comics, Alan Moore. Of course you are. And, you know, that's cool. That makes sense. Why don't you, you know, if you're ever going to do another comic book again, you know, maybe do one every 2 years, you know, crowdfund it and make it a big deal. You know, the comic book industry cannot support someone like you anymore. And here he is, Oklahoma, Ohio. I guess he's making fun of the way American states sound to his British ear. Haha. Yeah, so the response from Moore and O'Neill is an equally tongue-in-cheek response, reading at one point, "You're the most intelligent and appreciative we could have ever hoped for." I really hope that he wrote this, but I'm starting to think he didn't. Let me see. I'm not going to read this whole thing. It's gobbledygook. The letter is a joke written by Moore, as each issue of the series features each issue of the series features obviously fake letters for the creative team to answer. But was it the editor that wrote it? It sounds very American. It sounds very young and very American. Alan Moore's like 67 and British. All right, so we scroll down. This is what Alan Moore is, and then down here, here is CBR's explanation for what Comicsgate is. This should be amusing. Comicsgate is a group that considers itself against forced diversity. Well, I guess everyone else is for forced diversity then. Are you for forced diversity? Are you for diversity where, at all costs, where it doesn't belong, in the place of story or common sense? And progressive values in the comic book industry? No, I don't think that's true. Not progressive values. Social justice warriors in the comic book industry. Bullies. Extortionists. We're against coercion from these people. We're against threats. We're against whisper networks, isolation campaigns. We're against cancel culture. All of the things that come along with. If you want to call that progressive values, I'd be more than happy to allow you that, honestly. But for your own sake and out of respect for the handful of decent progressives that might exist out there, I'm not sure I'm willing to let you just fumble into that. Progressive values, you would call social justice warriorism progressive values? That's frightening. They don't have any values. They don't have any values. They're hateful. They're a hate club. They're a hate group. All right, in the comic book industry, claiming it's led to a decline in sales. Well, the fact that there is a decline in sales in the comic book industry cannot be denied. Cannot be denied. And I think that it's fair to say that at least some of that can be blamed on this, can be blamed on the agenda, can be blamed on the agenda of social justice warriors within the comic book industry. I don't think it's everything. I don't think it's the totality of that, but it is driving customers away, and driving customers away from comic book stores makes comic book stores close down, which means that these people, there are fewer outlets to purchase these comic books. The movement has previously been denounced by such creators as Jeff Lemire and Bill Sienkiewicz, propagandists. Bill Sienkiewicz decided to stand up and come out against Comicsgate. And, Bill Sienkiewicz is somebody who came out against his own aunt for voting for Trump and denounced her and called her names on the internet because she was a Trump supporter. That's his family. And a lot of these people, who was it? Tom Brevoort did the same thing to his son. Publicly, he called his son names for being a Trump supporter. Jeff Lemire, I don't think Jeff Lemire understands what Comicsgate is. How's that? And if he does, he's wrong about it. Jeff Lemire started this whole thing saying comics are for everyone. Well, that is, I put it to you, Jeff, that is the position of Comicsgate. Comics are for everyone. Comics should not be targeted at very small minority groups. People shouldn't be going, hey, we need to actually focus this book on this tiny, minute bit of audience, this little tiny bit of people out there that are not currently necessarily buying comics, and maybe that's because there aren't comic books for them. And then when they fail, try it again. Comic books are for everyone. Marketing with some kind of high-powered scope, target marketing, on that kind of a microscopic level is obviously going to end in disaster. It's obviously going to end in 3 straight years of decline in sales across the board. Comic books should be for everyone, and they were at one point. And the people who love comic books, were happy with them as they were. They were selling very, very well until some geniuses came in and decided that there wasn't enough representation. We needed more diversity. And they started to forget about what comic books actually were meant to do, what they were about, and what their purpose was, and instead used them as pamphlets to offer left-wing propaganda to an unwilling, uninterested, and frankly, rapidly becoming hostile, buying public. So that's where we are right now. That's what Comicsgate is. Both of these dudes are wrong. Bill Sienkiewicz is very, very wrong. Jeff Lemire, I don't know. Who cares? Who cares about either of these people? Neither of them is as important as Comicsgate, as a movement, or as Alan Moore. And both of us are looking eye to eye right now. And that's all that matters. Everyone, Comicsgate is the most important thing in comics right now. I'll say it again. most important thing in comics. It's the only topic that everybody has an opinion on. It's the only topic that matters, that's being discussed. It's such an important subject that talking about it will get you banned from comic book related message boards. That's how big we are. The history books will be written, and at the end of any honest assessment of the comic book industry, Comicsgate is going to be acknowledged for what it is, the most important movement aimed at saving this disastrously injured animal known as the comic book industry that was put forward. All right, 20 minutes. Wow, this is way too long. I could go on and on and on. Thank you very much for watching, and please subscribe. Please like this video, share this video. Tell me what you think. What are your thoughts? Isn't this pretty exciting? I guess if you're a comic book fan, it should be pretty exciting to you. You know, yeah, Alan Moore acknowledges Comicsgate. Salute, pal. You know, enjoyed some of your work and have a great retirement. Bye. Hey, I've got a new t-shirt, the Soy Boy t-shirt, Avoid the Soy, with my classic Soy Boy drawing. Look how iconic that is. Be sure to avoid the soy and pick up your brand new Soy Boy t-shirt. Why do all soy boys look exactly like this? I don't know. Links in the description. Thanks very much. Hey, you want to follow me on Twitter? Are you sure? Well, if so, I'm at Ethan Van Sciver. That's at Ethan Van Sciver. See you there. Hey, I got a P.O. box. Want to send me some mail? Send it to Ethan Van Sciver, P.O. Box 607, Marlton, New Jersey, 08053. And I'll probably open it up on a live stream. Thanks very much, everyone.